Third year, I believe. I'm privileged to be here on this special occasion of Sri Aurobindo's birthday. So it is particularly gratifying and it's a great honor to be here at the center started by Dr. Haridas Chaudhary to talk about Sri Aurobindo on his birthday. The talk today, I looked at the title later. I'd forgotten what the title was. But it's Ethics, Sustainability and the Integral Advaita of Sri Aurobindo. In brief, the Integral Advaita of Sri Aurobindo. This title, particularly the last part, the Integral Advaita of Sri Aurobindo, is a designation for Sri Aurobindo's philosophy that has actually been given by Haridas Chaudhary. He called it integral non-dualism. And he translated by that the Sanskrit term Purna Advaita Vedanta, which is a term he also used. So I will start by looking at the Vedantic basis of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. In a way, this talk is also dedicated to Haridas Chaudhary as a result. Purna Advaita Vedanta is the name of Sri Aurobindo's darshan. And as I said, it has been translated as integral non-dualism. Now, the term darshan is sometimes thought of as equivalent to philosophy. In the Western translation, it's called philosophy. But to call it philosophy misses out certain very essential aspects of the term darshan. Darshan is a term that belongs to the Indian tradition. I will clarify what exactly it means as we go on. But it's a term that is always accompanied by another term, which is yoga. Darshan and yoga are closely coupled in the Indian discourse. They are like two wings of a bird. Darshan literally means seeing, to see. And Sri Aurobindo has called it, in the Life Divine, he has used a term to clarify the fact that darshan is not just a conceptual description of philosophy. He has called it an experience concept. An experience concept is a concept that arises out of experience. So to see something, to actually behold something, to experience something, and to have it arise as a concept, this is the meaning of darshan. Now, darshan is linked to yoga, and we'll come later to yoga. I'll go through what darshan is, what Sri Aurobindo's darshan is, and how it links to yoga and what yoga is in sequence. The darshan provides a conceptual map for yoga. And it's a conceptual map, in other words, as a philosophy, it's a conceptual map which allows us to experience the concept that arose out of an experience concept. So if we have the experience, we validate it. In other words, the darshan is out there not just to take in as a dogma, like religious dogmas, but therefore purely for experience. A darshan is meant to be experienced. And once experienced, that is the validation of the darshan in your life. It can also be validated in others' lives. And therefore, a body of collective validation results from this. In this way, it is a subjective equivalent of a central pillar of the scientific method, where scientific theories are validated collectively by people who test them out. They do this in objective terms. Experience concepts as darshans are validated collectively in subjective terms. So darshan also carries the goals. So it's a conceptual map which carries the goals to be experienced. And these goals are experienced through yoga. So yoga is the praxis part of the darshan yoga pair. Now, as I said, this darshan is based on Vedanta. What is Vedanta? The term Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. Sometimes it is used to describe the Upanishads. But more properly, the term Vedanta is used for later philosophies that are interpretations of the Upanishads. The term Advaita is familiar to a lot of us from its use by Shankara. Many people just use the word Advaita to mean Shankara's philosophy, but Advaita literally means non-dualism. Dvaita, which relates to the English term duality, because of course English is also an Indo-European language. There are a lot of Sanskrit terms that have very close resonances with English. So Advaita, non-duality, the opposite of duality, is what Advaita literally means. As I said, we commonly understand the word Advaita through the philosophy of Shankara, which is commonly called Advaita. It's just known as Advaita. But more technically, the philosophy of Shankara is called Keval Advaita Vedanta. The term Advaita is used in a lot of interpretations. It is not just Shankara's interpretation that has the term Advaita. Most philosophies that interpret the Upanishads have the term Advaita included in them, because even dualistic interpretations of Vedanta, of the Upanishads, are ultimately non-dualistic. They're dualistic non-dualisms. Therefore, there are schools called Dvaita Advaita, dualistic non-dualism. The Shankara school is called Advaita, but it's really called Keval Advaita Vedanta. And these schools are characterized by pithy statements that are called Mahavakyas. A Mahavakya is a single sentence that is there for us to understand the foundation of that darshan, not just mentally, but also as something to be meditated on. It also gives us a praxis. It gives us a method. If you meditate on this summary, it is a mantra through which the essence of this darshan will be experienced. So Shankara's Mahavakya is Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya, and it literally translates as Brahman is true, the world is false. Of course, it's a complex statement. In that simple pithy sentence, it seems to be very reductive, and I don't want to reduce it, but I want to start with that by saying that that's how Shankara thought of the phenomenal world that we experience as ultimately being unreal, because there is something real outside it, a transcendent that's outside it. And this phenomenal world is experienced as a falsehood, as something which is unreal, an illusion. Sri Aurobindo's darshan, as I said, is called Integral Advaita. Haridas Chaudhary has used that term. It's also given him the Sanskrit term Purna Advaita Vedanta. Purna Advaita Vedanta has been Purna. Purna means completeness. But what kind of completeness? The word integral has been used for it. And Advaita again, non-dual, Vedanta. The Mahavakya of this philosophy or concept experience concept can be given as Brahma Satya, Jagat Satya, Jiva Satya, or Brahman is true, world is true, beings are true. This is Sri Aurobindo's darshan. Now, part of my lecture today is clarifying what that means. What does that mean? First, we start with Brahman. Brahman is the infinite conscious being, or reality itself as the infinite conscious being. It was fortuitous and wonderful that Rita started this introduced this talk with a meditation from Haridas Chaudhary, where he describes reality, the whole description of reality in its various forms. In fact, that description was a description of reality as Brahman as integral non-dualism, the integral non-dual description of Brahman. So reality as the only thing there is, there is only one thing. And whatever differences we see, ultimately there is nothing but Brahman. They are all forms of Brahman. So it's the infinite conscious being as reality itself. However, it can present itself to itself through infinite entities or beings and infinite orders of infinity or worlds. An infinite order of infinity, you'll see me using this term again, means that this infinite can view itself through a selective process as an order of infinity. In other words, a certain ordering, a certain disposition. Each such disposition is an order of infinity. So each such word, each such viewing, self-viewing is a word. And the independent entities in that world are beings. Neither worlds nor beings are anything other than Brahman. Orders of infinity are also the absolute infinity of Brahman. Every being in it is the absolute infinity of Brahman. So our cosmos and its creatures are one such order of infinity with its beings, each of which is an order of infinity and is none other than Brahman. Now, Sri Aurobindo describes for us a certain cosmology, one may say a map of the cosmological nature of Brahman. And he gets this, if we are talking about Vedanta, since I'm looking at Sri Aurobindo's philosophy in terms of the Upanishads, we find this in the Taittiriya Upanishad. The Taittiriya Upanishad gives us grades of consciousness and their ordering principle. As I said, each cosmos that the Brahman can view itself through is an ordering principle. Now this diagram to the right is not fully accurate. That is because I've adapted it from somewhere else, but I'll explain it as we go along. These concentric sheaths have to do with the various levels of consciousness, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Vedanta is monistic. In other words, there is only one thing according to Vedanta, as I said earlier. Beyond all distinctions, there is Brahman, one and infinite conscious being. Brahman can present itself as an infinite gradation of consciousness with discrete ranges expressing distinctive properties. Now, this is the ordering principle. The Brahman can look at itself in a variety of ordering principles. Of them, the one such ordering principle can be a systematic ordering principle. In other words, it can present itself to itself as an infinite gradation of consciousness, from most dense to most rarefied. And when we say most, we're also talking about infinities. There is no end. The density keeps going all the way down without end. The rarefaction also keeps going all the way up without end. So that is a certain self-presentation of Brahman, as a gradation of consciousness. As this gradation of consciousness is manifest, you can say that it's a continuity, it's a complete continuum. However, Sri Aurobindo points out in the Life Divine that Brahman in its self-perception, or as we may say, through the action of its self-perceiving consciousness, which is called Maya, actually operates through a certain three principles. One of these principles is variation, and that's what we saw in this case. How does it order itself? It orders itself in a variety of ways, one of which is as a continuous gradation. Secondly, it can enter into any particular range of this order through a self-limitation. In other words, this continuous order can be discretized. A certain range of this continuity has certain properties, and those properties can be a certain way in which the Brahman experiences itself. And that's how this continuum can have certain discrete ranges, like the range of matter, the range of life, the range of mind, the range of supermind, the range of bliss, of pure consciousness and pure being, and then ranges that go infinitely beyond and ranges that go infinitely below. So this is what Taittiriya Upanishad gives us, this spectrum of the ordering of consciousness as a certain perception, self-perception of Brahman, with ranges that have distinctive properties. All of Brahman can be present as experiencer. So it is Brahman who is experiencing itself through this self-limitation. So it is experiencer or Purusha in each such range of consciousness. So each such range of consciousness as a qualitative body of Brahman is called Prakriti. As a field of manifestation, so it's a qualitative body in which the qualities are manifesting, and the combination of those qualities are manifesting in the form of entities. So here comes the third property. First, Brahman can order itself in a variety of ways. Secondly, Brahman can limit itself in a variety of ways and experience these self-limitations. Third, Brahman can experience itself as a self-absorption. In other words, it can atomize itself. It can enter into certain combinations of qualities, and in each of these combinations of qualities, it can hide everything else as if that alone exists. It is immanent in each such combination. The whole of Brahman resides as a certain kind of internal self-absorption. These are entities, these are beings, things, creatures. So each of these ranges of consciousness will have its own beings that are manifesting the qualities in individual form as drops or particles. So these are the beings. These beings are made up of variations of the properties of these ranges, in each of which Brahman dwells. This spectrum of consciousness is represented in the Taittiriya Upanishad as ranges or worlds, each with its qualitative bodies. A material body, here you see Annamaya Kosha, a life body, Pranamaya Kosha, a mind body, Manomaya Kosha, a supramental body, Vijnanamaya Kosha. In this map, following some other traditions, they call it discernment, but Sri Aurobindo calls this supermind. This is supermind. This is Vijnanamaya Kosha, the supramental body, and a bliss body known as the Anandamaya Kosha. Now the reason why Chit and Sat are not represented in the Taittiriya Upanishad is Sri Aurobindo discusses this somewhere, because this question has been raised. It says the reason is that having a kind of individualized body is not possible beyond the bliss principle as we are constituted now. If we were to, as a race, experience supermind, if we became a Gnostic race, these bodies would then become possible to us. New kinds of bodies would become possible. But right now it's enough to talk up to bliss, and that's why Taittiriya Upanishad ends with bliss and then comes back from bliss, seeing the bliss in all the other bodies. That's the process of the Taittiriya Upanishad, an ascent and a descent. This spectrum of consciousness is represented, as I just went through that, physical, anna, vital, prana, and mental mana bodies and worlds compose the ignorance. This is a very important distinction made by Vedanta, by the Upanishads, and also affirmed by Sri Aurobindo. He says that these three ranges, evolutionary ranges, as we can see, at first you have pure matter, life emerges in matter, it's an emergent property, an emergent range of consciousness in matter, mind emerges in life. These are emergent ranges of consciousness. All these three ranges belong to what he calls ignorance with a capital I, or avidya. Why? Why is it called ignorant? We'll see in a moment. Now beyond that, here, why is it called ignorant? Because here discrete and separative experience prevails. In this movement from matter to mind, we see the struggle of entities to emerge and individuate. We have ranges of consciousness, but in these ranges of consciousness, we have individuals, entities. These entities are really struggling to emerge and have some survival within these ranges. This gives rise to beings who find themselves as the centers of their own universe. Each entity is the center of its own universe. It's separated from others. It knows others only in terms of its own internal structures. It cannot really know anybody else as they themselves are. It only guesses, or it tries to contact them externally through external contact, but then through yoga we can have internal contact, and then we start beginning to have a deeper understanding of things and others. But even there is a gap between us and others. That separation characterizes the ignorance. That's why it's called the ignorance. In the description of the Upanishads, knowledge means knowledge by being, knowledge by identity. You know because you are. If you want to know something, you have to become that thing. If you are that thing, you know it from inside out, not from outside in. This is the idea. That's why it's ignorance. Causal, vijnana, bliss, ananda, and higher sheets comprise knowledge of vidya, where non-dual experience prevails. In other words, even if there are entities here, these entities first experience the one and experience themselves and all others as formulations of the one. Non-duality is the principle that characterizes the sense of being of these entities in these planes beyond the mind. Now, vijnana or divine mind, so we find that from mind, the next principle up that moves us from the ignorance to the knowledge is the supramental plane or the vijnana plane. Vijnana is the divine mind or supermind, the ordering principle of this self-presentation. This is the very reason why, from the very beginning, human beings intuit that there must be a law to this universe. This is the great intuition of science. We seek for those laws because we see that there is a certain kind of rationality to things. Things have a certain ordering principle behind them. What is that ordering principle? If we think that we can capture it through our minds, we are mistaken, because that ordering principle is only in a subsidiary fashion available to mind. Its origin is at a higher plane. Its origin is in supermind. But it does exist. That's the reason why we intuit it. So the ordering principle of this cosmos, as we saw, this is an ordered cosmos where there is a gradation, a systematic gradation from the densest consciousness to the most rarefied consciousness. It is because there is an order there, there must be an ordering principle. Who did the ordering? What aspect of Brahman was responsible for this ordering? What is the mind of God? Not the human mind. This is supermind. And supermind stands at that point where it orders Brahman into a certain kind of coherent structure. See, it gives it this, it's a certain plane of coherence. So, supermind manifests Vidya's possibilities of self-experience through the dimensions of time, space, discreteness, and the will to individuation in avidya. What that means is that what we find is that these emergences take place in a coherent fashion. From matter to life, from life to mind, we are seeing the emergence of degrees of consciousness in a coherent fashion. We see beings that are in each of these planes, that are exploring and experiencing these planes in a coherent fashion, in a fashion in which there is the experience of higher and higher qualities. And who is really experiencing all this? It is Brahman who is experiencing itself through all these experiencers. So it provides a coherent field for the self-experience of Brahman. And as you can see, the dimensions through which this experience is taking place are not eternity all at once, but temporality, through time, spatiality, through space, through the relations of entities, through evolutionary emergences. Therefore, it's a very special kind of self-experience. A self-experience characterized by space, time, discreteness, which is the way in which individuals experience, or Brahman experience through individuals, and the will to individuation. In all this, it is not a flat emergence or experience. It is a experience in which these entities are going to try and each of them become Brahman itself. That is the will to individuation. Become an individual that will be nothing other than Purusha. Purusha in the Upanishadic sense, that is the supreme being, the one being there is. Thus, so we can see that this entire process, this ordering, this evolutionary process, the dimensions through which experience takes place, is being orchestrated by a certain aspect of Brahman called supermind, which in the Upanishads is given the name Vijnana. So what is it? It is just like Brahman's self-experience is being orchestrated by Brahman's power or Shakti, that in Upanishads is called Maya. It is the Maya or Shakti of supermind of Vijnana that is really responsible for this kind of manifestation. That can be called Vijnana Shakti, the Shakti or the energy of the supermind. Thus, Vijnana Shakti stands in the mythologic position, mythologic because it's logical yet it's mythical, it's the mythical root. It gives rise to the cosmos as a mythos, but it is also the logos. So it's the mythos and logos combined. It's the mythologic position of Divine Mother, birthing the cosmos and ordering its phases and parts. This is the Divine Mother. This is the Shakti of Vijnana, of supermind, is the Divine Mother that is in complete control over the ordering of the phases and parts of the manifestation. Just as there is an intelligence at work in the birthing of the child, just like that, there is an intelligence involved in the birthing of the cosmos and all its ranges of consciousness, its entities and their evolution to the knowledge of Brahman, towards the knowledge of Brahman. Annamaya kosha, or material substance. So we talked about this top, the Vijnana, the supermind, and then there is the bottom. But these are both provisional. Beyond Vijnana, there are other planes. Below matter, there are other planes. There are greater densities of matter, or you may say there are principles that are even more dense, in which the involution of Brahman takes place. So that is the material substrate, the Annamaya kosha, matter. Matter is the density which actually stops the visualization of this experience, okay? Which is why the mother calls matter a screen. It's a special range of consciousness in that it acts as a screen or medium which receives the involution of all the other ranges and evolves them progressively in material bodies. This involution evolution is also under the control of Vijnana. Vijnana is the principle that is controlling this. But the screen, just as you have a screen on which the projection falls, that real screen is matter. Matter is the screen. Matter is the medium in which all these planes are presenting themselves, are entering, involving themselves, and evolving out of it by this power of Vijnana Shakti. Thus, Vijnana is dharma. Dharma, the term means that which holds everything together. What is it that gives unity? What is it that gives oneness to everything? This complex oneness. Oneness to the planes of consciousness. Oneness to the beings that are in the planes. Oneness to the entire ordering sequence. Oneness to the movement in time, and oneness to the distribution in space. It is Vijnana. This is Dharma. This Dharma gives the complex unity to things. This is what is meant by the term integral. This is integrality. Integrality is that complex unity of supermind which sees at once the whole, all its parts, each of its individuals, their movements in interaction with each other, and their temporal movement in the evolution of the cosmos, and in their individual individuations. That is Dharma. That is Vijnana Shakti. That is the integral of integral non-duality. That is what ties together the Purna Advaita Vedanta of Sri Aurobindo. Thus, Vijnana is Dharma, maintaining the dynamic equilibrium of the ranges of consciousness and their interactions, relationality, and evolutionary changes process. The human being represents the evolution in matter, which manifests life, prana, and some of the properties of mind, mana. What properties? Diffuse mentality, chitta, sense mind, manas, and intelligence, buddhi. So these are all these lower planes, the planes of matter, life, and mind, are present in the human, who is here to individuate these as one particular integral root. In other words, the human is that being that begins to intuit the integral. The integral is not yet here in us, but we begin to intuit it. We begin to connect with it. Properties of mind not yet manifest in the human include ranges of cosmic mind and the transition into supermind. Sri Aurobindo is saying, in the evolution of the cosmos, matter has evolved life, the ranges of life, has evolved the ranges of mind, but it has not evolved all the ranges of mind. What the human being represents is certain levels of mind reaching up to rationality. But there are cosmic levels of mind beyond that which have not yet manifest. But these are not going to manifest by power of natural evolution. There is a critical point in the evolution where power of self-consciousness has to open the door. This is the point at which human beings find themselves. They have to take the step consciously into the evolution to these other planes of mind, leading up to supermind. Human beings are capable of rising in consciousness to ranges beyond what is manifest so far in avidya and bring down the awareness of the vidya planes of supermind and bliss to inform the divided experience of avidya with its origin. We are here to connect with supermind and supramentalize the avidya or the ignorance. How can we do this? We can do this through yoga. This is the yoga of Sri Aurobindo. So this entire description is that of the darshan of Sri Aurobindo leading to the yoga of Sri Aurobindo. It gives us the goals and it gives us the description, the map, the conceptual map, and a image of the experience concept. So now we come to yoga. What is the yoga of Sri Aurobindo? But before that, what we've described so far has been a cosmology. It has been described in cosmic terms. This is also a psychology, because in each individual there is the possibility of experiencing the very same things that are in the cosmos. The microcosm mirrors the macrocosm, is actually mapped onto the macrocosm. This has been given to us largely through the system called Tantra. The Tantric system gives us the knowledge of the centers of consciousness along the spine that are called chakras, with symbols and Purusha Prakriti pairs. Remember, we talked about Purusha as the experiencer and Prakriti as the body of qualities through which manifestation is occurring and which is being experienced. Tantra describes the ranges of consciousness immanent in the human through its system of chakras. Remember, the self-absorption of Brahman in entities makes it immanent in every entity that it concentrates itself and becomes. These are 7 major chakras at key nodes along the subtle channel called Shushumna, corresponding to the spine. Each of these is a subdivision of the physical, vital, and mental worlds of the Vedanta. How are they? Because the lowest chakra represents the material plane and the planes below. The sex center, the navel center, and the heart center represent the range of vital consciousness or life consciousness. The throat center, the center between the eyebrows, and the 1,000-petal lotus represent the ranges of mental consciousness. Of this, nature has evolved up to open manifestations up to the center between the eyes. The center of mind consciousness above the forehead is a closed lotus. It's present but closed. Now, all these other yogas that have gone before have made the suggestion that we have to rise to that particular lotus above the head and reside there in deep trance or samadhi. So, at the center of each resides the Purusha Prakriti pair. An individualization of the cosmic Prakriti is also coiled at the base of the spine in the form of a sleeping serpent called Kundalini. The base chakra is called Muladhara, the sex center Swadhisthana, navel center Manipura, heart center Anahata, throat center Vishuddhi, eyebrow center Agya, and the center at the crown of the head Sahasrara. The ranges of consciousness from Muladhara to Agya participate in avidya, that is separateness. As we can see, all the way from the root chakra to the one between the eyes is the range that constitutes the ignorance. The consciousness in the 1,000-petal lotus lives in vidya or unity consciousness. Tantrics aim at raising the Kundalini up the Shushumna, up the spinal channel, to enter into trance or samadhi in the Sahasrara. The Sahasrara Chakra gives access to even higher states of consciousness, such as Vijnana, Satchidananda, and even higher sheets of knowledge of Vidya. They are all available. This is like the portal, the gate, from which one can enter even higher. And normally it is said, even in the Upanishads, that one enters in trance. The trance just at the 1,000-petal lotus is the trance of what is called Shushupti, and then even deeper trance to the higher and more unmanifest planes is called Turiya. Turiya means the nameless fourth condition. So this is supposed to be the way in which we open up or escape out of the avidya, the ignorance, and experience the totality of Brahman. Now, I want to say before continuing that in Sri Aurobindo's case, what he's going to point out, he's affirming all these things, but he's going to point out that, as he said, that it is the supermind that is really at the root of managing this entire system. Supermind is Divine Mother giving birth. And so to actually have contact with that particular consciousness, we have to be able to rise to the 1,000-petal lotus in the waking condition. We have to be able to stabilize our consciousness there, not enter it into a sleeping samadhi. This is one of the primary places that Sri Aurobindo differs from the yogas of the past. So let's continue. So what is yoga? Now we come to yoga, the second limb or second wing of this darshan yoga pair. Is yoga meditation, dhyana? Is yoga devotion, bhakti? Is yoga physical postures and breath control, as in all the yoga studios that we see all around us? Asanas and pranayama? Is yoga kundalini experience? Is yoga samadhi? Well, yoga can include all these things, but it isn't any of them. The great teachers of yoga have always taught a change of lifestyle, a lifestyle change. Yoga is lifestyle orientation. This is dharma. How are we going to orient ourselves to the law that holds together all these things? How are we going to connect to that law? How are we going to yoke ourselves to that law? That is dharma. That is yoga. This is what the Gita teaches. The Gita doesn't teach meditation only, bhakti only, asanas and pranayamas, kundalini experience or samadhi. It teaches a certain orientation of consciousness. This is what the Buddha taught. He taught the Eightfold Way, which is a certain orientation of consciousness. This is what Sri Aurobindo teaches. All life is yoga. Sri Aurobindo says, all life is yoga, and it means two things. First, nature's process of evolution of consciousness develops through self-organizing will to cosmic survival. There is a self-organizing will active in nature. In other words, nature is itself already doing yoga. This is the Vijnana Shakti that is immanent inside the cosmic matter, that is causing the birthing of the ranges of evolution by cosmic survival. How is the cosmos going to it starts from unconsciousness. In pure unconsciousness there is death, but there is nothing that is purely unconscious. Everything is degrees of consciousness. So even what we call dead matter is a degree of consciousness. But how will that emerge with full consciousness? It has to struggle to emerge. And that struggle is the part of the process of yoga, leading to survival, to adaptation, to cooperation, to orders of complexity integration, and to individuation. This is all orchestrated by the immanent action of the Vijnana Shakti or supramental power at work in the cosmos. This is the process that's going on. At the second level, human beings' intelligent and self-conscious acceleration of this process. We are not asked to do something which nature is not doing. We are asked to accelerate it. Sri Aurobindo quotes Vivekananda, who gave a definition of yoga. He said, yoga is accelerated evolution. And Sri Aurobindo takes that same definition and says, the evolution is already being orchestrated in nature by the Vijnana Shakti which is immanent in it. But at the level of the human, it has to become self-conscious. We have to take that step through power of Purusha, not power of Prakriti. Human beings' intelligent and self-conscious acceleration of this process through right orientation and right attitudes. The human has the potential to free himself or herself of nature's yoga, since the characteristic of the human is that he or she is not a typifiable being. We are not characterized by a type. We seem to be a type, but the human being cannot be defined. We are indefinable. That is the characteristic of the human, as against the characteristic of other orders of the creation, which can be characterized in terms of their species characteristics. The human is not a typifiable being, but a transitional being. We are always transitional. We are not just transitional in this stage, but human beings are always in transition. The human comes to represent in an individual, in other words, through individuation, the wholeness of avidya's evolutionary manifestation without end. Time as a dimension order of infinity. This is what the human being represents. We are here to keep transcending and keep experiencing greater and greater possibilities of Brahman. Now we come to Vedantic Mahavakyas. In other words, what are the Mahavakyas that we can carry from the Upanishads as Sri Aurobindo teaches us? Okay, can we use the Upanishads to practice Sri Aurobindo's yoga? Can we do that orientation change? Can we direct ourselves through meditating on certain kinds of Mahavakyas in such a way that the dharma of supermind, which is that particular ordering principle that connects everything and integralizes them, is given to us? Can we have that? How can we do the integral yoga? Through the Upanishads, in other words. These are the 4 Mahavakyas that I feel enable us to do it. Rita started by the meditation on Om. The first one is Om Tat Sat. Om, that is true. Whenever the Upanishads use the word that, Tat, they mean the transcendent. Something which is always more, always infinite, always infinitely more than anything that can be described of it. Tat. Om Tat Sat. That is the truth. That is representing our openness, our orientation to the transcendence. By meditating on this word, we have to keep ourselves open to the 1,000-petal lotus above our minds, constantly feeling that the infinite is above us, but the infinite is what gives meaning to us. The second one is Sarvam Khaluvidam Brahma, which means all this is only the Brahman. Whatever we see all around us in the cosmos is just Brahman. Brahman has become everything that we see around us. Can we see things like that? We have to orient ourselves. We have to meditate on that idea. And if we do that, then we are connecting to the cosmic manifestation of the Brahman. The first one connects us to the transcendent manifestation of the Brahman. the second one to the cosmic manifestation of the Brahman. This is the root of sustainability. It is only when we become conscious of the cosmos as Brahman, to the extent that we can do that, we start experiencing the certainty of something that can make us sustainable, make the cosmos, make us responsible for sustainability. Not in a mental way, but in an experiential way. The cosmic consciousness can be ours. We are responsible for the cosmos because the cosmos lives in us. And it doesn't live in us only in a mental form, but we can really experience the fact that the cosmic consciousness lives in us. If that experience can be had, sustainability is a natural and inevitable consequence. The third is Tat Tvam Asi, which means thou art that. And that means I look upon every entity in the universe and see the Brahman there. What that means is the individual other. This is the root of ethics. The root of ethics is to see the self in all beings in the world. If we can see the one being in other beings, only to that extent can we really affirm that we can be free of cruelty. We can be free of demands of the ego on somebody else because we see only the one. And fourthly, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that. I am nothing but the Brahman. Individuation. I, in my essence and in my manifestation, in my matter, life and mind, in my body, my life energies and my mental energies, I am nothing but Brahman. That meditating on that and experiencing that gives rise to the fulfillment of yoga as individuation, as the root of realizing the supermind. Now, dharma holds all these relations together and is seated as will in the evolving process. This dharma is the Vijnana Shakti, the supramental Shakti. So that is really what we are affirming through these four Mahavakyas. Relationality, translating the Vedantic orientations, means that the primary relation we have, what ties these four together? It's supermind that ties these four together. So there has to be one thing, not four things, that we can meditate on. That one thing is supermind. We have to meditate on the supramental Shakti, which is what Sri Aurobindo has called the Divine Mother. This is the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is the one who is transcendent, who is cosmic, who is the inside or immanent in the individual other, and who is immanent in oneself, as the one power that is orchestrating the entire evolution of all of these towards the integral consciousness, So that is the primary, our primary relationship is with the Divine Mother as the Vijnana Shakti. So what that means in terms of these four Mahavakyas: faith, surrender and opening to the transcendental Vijnana Shakti in the 1,000-petal lotus, leading us to waking and dynamic oneness with her. Transcendence. This is in the waking condition we must experience. Sri Aurobindo has a very bold, kind of a audacious image in one of his poems. He talks about the rose of God as the sun on the head of the timeless. The sun on the head of the timeless is the cosmic Sahasrara. That is the root of the Divine Mother. That is the Divine Mother. That is Logos and Gnosis and Mythos all at once. That is what we have to open ourselves to as the transcendental dimension of the Vijnana Shakti. That is meant by Om Tat Sat. Secondly, faith and receptivity to Vijnana Shakti as the cosmic mother, the Divine Mother spread out in the cosmos, everywhere. She is the cosmic mother, bringing us the experiences we need in our process of evolution, making us participate in the evolution of the cosmos and leading us to oneness with her as the cosmic consciousness. It is she who's leading us to the cosmic consciousness, but we have to orient ourselves to that. Orient ourselves. All our experiences don't come from A, B, or C. They all come to us from her. And why do they come to us? Because she's bringing us into her embrace. She's bringing us into the experience of the cosmic consciousness. We have to remember that. If we can remember that, we practice the Mahavakya, Sarvam Khaluvidam Brahma. All this is nothing but the Brahman. Thirdly, faith and receptivity to the Vijnana Shakti in our relations with beings in the world. Through each being, the mother is at work, bringing us the experiences we need in our process and leading to oneness with her in the being. The mother exists immanent in every being. We only see the surface. But if we have faith in her, she will reveal herself. And to the degree that she reveals herself, we are in contact with the oneness principle, with the integral principle in others, in every individual. Fourthly, faith and receptivity in the Vijnana Shakti in ourselves. It is only that which resides in us. Responding to the experiences of the cosmos and its entities through progressive awakening to her, seated as knowledge and will in us, and relating dynamically to all beings as her evolving cosmos and evolving selves. This is the meditation on the Mahavakya, I am nothing but the Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. The Shakti of Brahman resides in me. Now, to wrap up, this implies certain capacities that we need to develop. There are some primary capacities that we need to evolve in ourselves. First is the capacity to love, which is affect. The power of sympathy, empathy, understanding, care, concern, help, openness to be transformed, intensity and completeness of self-giving to the Vijnana Shakti in herself, in the cosmos, and in all beings, with the faith in her capacity to manifest the love born of unity of Dharma in each case. This faith has to be developed. Secondly, capacity of universality. First, the universality of subjective understanding, an intuitive grasp of all psychological forces and their combinations and manifestations. This works in combination with the capacity to love, the power of subjective understanding, psychological understanding. Secondly, of ecological understanding, an intuitive grasp of the cosmos as an interacting ecosystem. Vijnana Shakti as cosmos. Third, of historical and pre-human temporal understanding, the evolution. An intuitive grasp of the subjectivity of the evolution. There is only one being that is evolving. It is the mother who is evolving. So can we grasp that? Can we intuit that? That is the cosmos, and in all beings, it is that one being who is evolving. Fourth, of cultural understanding, an intuitive grasp of anthropological subjectivity as culturally and technologically mediated evolutions of human and pre-human beings in the cosmos. There is a certain interface. The interface, by technology I don't necessarily mean machines. I'm talking about techniques. I'm talking about the interface through which communication occurs, both before the human and in the human and beyond the human. Can we intuit that interface? Third, capacity to transcend. Faith in the presence and openness and self-giving of the intelligence, buddhi, to the agencies and actions of the supramental Shakti, Vijnana Shakti, in cosmic mind and supermind, so as to be illumined with knowledge and informed with spiritual experience. This very kind of idea is given to us by a mantra by Sri Aurobindo, which is Sri Aurobindo's Gayatri. Tat savitur varam rupam jyoti parasya dhimahi yanna satyena dipayet. That illuminates all of us. It starts with the intellect, but it goes integrally into illuminating all of us. The first drop, the sunlight, drops on the intellect and illuminates it. Coming down, it creates the mind of light, and then that transforms everything. This openness has a faith in the guidance and force of the supramental Shakti descending from the 1,000-petal lotus into the mind and into all the chakras. Finally, the capacity of intuition, because all these depend on developing a certain kind of intuition. We have to develop the capacity of intuition. What types? The intuition of space, which comes to us through our visual faculty, through things like art, and the appreciation of relations, of parts to wholes and wholes to other wholes, in a relational space of 3 dimensions, and mathematically and through experience of being other dimensions of relational space. This is the intuition of space. Secondly, the intuition of time intuition. And I'm connecting this to certain cultural phenomena like art, but it's not limited to those. Again, the time intuition I'm connecting to the cultural phenomena of music. It's not limited to that. Music is a cultural analog of the time intuition of history or archaeology. This is something that Bergson talks about. He calls it duration, time intuition. The intuition of seeing something as one entity that's evolving. All of time is one being that's evolving. It's one musical score. It's one orchestrated piece that has still not reached its crescendo. Intuition of the oracle. The divine speaks through us and through others. Instead of trusting the convulsing shaman, we will trust the calm goddess Saraswati, Vedic mother of the word, and her sisters of intuition, spiritual vision, real idea experience, and high aesthetic and ethical judgment, coming down from above, not the Kundalini convulsing from below, which is also a wonderful process but needs a guide. What Sri Aurobindo is saying, everybody can open to the Vijnana Shakti descending from above and becoming the oracle in our lives. It is Saraswati descending from above. Intuition of sense. Each of the senses separately can develop its own intuitive life, as can the judgment, discrimination, and cognition. The training of all these can be helped by developing the intuition of cultural criticism related to each of the faculties. I'm not talking about cultural criticism as something that one puts out there as an absolute understanding of something, but something that one turns within. See, just as Sri Aurobindo gives us certain guideposts to understanding overhead poetry, for example. What is it? What qualities constitute the manifestation of these planes? It is something we can intuit, not to tell others, but to come to an understanding ourselves. Intuition of affect, the right relations in the affective sense, in our relations, easy intimacy with all beings. How can I know where you stand, who you are, what needs to be said to you at a certain point, what is helpful to you and what is helpful to me. That is a great intuition, an intuition of relation that belongs to the affect, to the heart, to the affection. Right relations of the affective sense. The intuition of will, which belongs to politics. This is the politics of autopoiesis. In other words, how does individuation occur? How are we becoming individuals? How do we need to interact with others in terms of not being diminished, but at the same time not allowing hurt? What is the perfect balance which only the supermind knows? We can't have it, but we can aspire for it. Finally, intuition of skill, again the domain of Saraswati, this time Mahasaraswati, carrying in herself all the other goddesses and bringing to us the skills of the body, skills of the decisive will, skills of aesthetic judgment, skills of moral judgment, or dharma in the sense of morality. So these are certain guidelines, in a way extrapolating from the Vedanta and trying to understand the yoga of Sri Aurobindo as a Purnadvaita Vedanta that relates to our being in the cosmos and experiencing integrality as participating beings that can evolve ethics and evolve sustainability through experience. Thank you. So, is there time for questions?
If you like, we can have a few.
Okay, a few questions or comments. Yes, Satyavan.
It seems like this marriage between Jiva, Atman, and Brahman. I'm wondering, like a mirror of wisdom, does Brahman know itself?
Yeah, in fact, that's a very good question. Sri Aurobindo says at one place, I do not want to know God as humans know God or as men know God, but as God knows himself. This is the sentence. And how does God know himself? He knows himself through his organ of knowledge, which is supermind. So the experience of supermind is God's knowledge of himself. It's an infinite knowledge. That's why I said the way in which our cosmos is structured is only one aspect of that knowledge. Infinite cosmoses or infinite dispositions of the infinite forms of consciousness are simultaneously present in that knowledge, in that self-knowledge. Yes,
So then,
Adrian.
Could we take ourselves as being essentially sense organs of supermind, or eyes by which God can? We're sort of artificially through Maya created as others, so that there can be a self-reflective aspect.
Absolutely, we are the experiences of supermind, but we are also the sense organs is a way of talking about both the interface between the Purusha and the Prakriti, because the sense organ is receiving experiences and is also behind it is the experiencer. So we are the being who experiences through us, as well as we are the organs through which that experience goes to that being. Yeah. Somebody? Yeah.
Yes, and you gave several different ways in order to step into this process. Most of them, for me, require more mental activity, and the one that doesn't, which the person mentioned, that is a catchword for everyone nowadays to have love for everyone, unconditional love. For me, that's here in the physical realm that needs to be manifest. I'm just wondering if you would agree with that, and then also give examples on how we can manifest it.
Yeah, I think what I agree with what you were saying, particularly, all of what you were saying, particularly the first part, the ideational part. The ideational part is the orientation, because if we don't have an orientation, we really don't know where we are going. So the notion of manifesting love, unconditional love, is also not to be kind of mistaken as a self-abnegation of the personal power of individuation. You see, because we can very easily take personal abuse to be a form of love. Okay, and that's where the orientation comes in. You see, we cannot lose our survival, because God grows up, is evolving through us. We are empowering God as an evolving being, and that also has to be realized. So that's why it's a skill. Love is actually a very, very potent word that cannot be understood fully by us at this point. It's not just, be nice to people. See, what is love? That ultimately becomes the root of the most complex yoga that really can't be understood until the supermind manifests in us. That is the love that holds together the whole cosmos. We are moving in that direction. We are aspiring for it. And we can embody it in various degrees, but there's no one way to do it. This is the reason why it's impossible for me to tell anybody what they should do. They have to discover it for themselves. Everybody's path is different, and everybody's sequences are different. It's the supermind in you that knows the answer. I don't. See, that's the thing.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Brilliant talk. We're very, very privileged to have you here with us to celebrate Sri Aurobindo's birthday, and this is the third year in a row, and it's just wonderful. Thank you.